rowdywrestling.net.
There's a rowdy crowd today.
Hey now, everybody. Welcome to the Rowdy Wrestling Podcast. I'm Tony Stabile. He's Steve Rockamaniac. Marathon, my friends. Marathon. We just got through NXT weekend. Personally, for me, this show is about Quebec Pro Wrestling as well. I had a show in some camping in some town in northern Quebec that I had to do last night, which was a shit ton of fun. I mean, those are always some really great shows. But that meant I watched NXT this morning. Steve had watched it last night, as you guys saw on Twitter. And then we led into the 7-hour marathon. I guess we'll call it a marathon. That was WWE not Survivors. See, that's what's going on with me, Steve. Save me here. Jump in.
Well, apparently, like, I was the one on a drinking binge since our preview show, but no.
Really, I can't talk anymore. SummerSlam, goddammit.
So, yes, and also, although WrestleMania ended up being a 7-hour marathon, thankfully, the WWE did us a little bit of a favor here tonight, as they only did 6 hours tonight, and actually ended it on time, and, did not go to midnight, as we are actually recording this pre-midnight for once. As usually we're getting these post-midnight broadcasts as part of the Big Four weekends, and of course it's been a great weekend of professional wrestling.
Amazing.
WWE did deliver and then some in many ways this weekend, and so I'm looking forward to breaking it down. NXT was amazing. SummerSlam was able to take the challenge from the NXT roster and deliver in many ways. There's a couple dull spots, but apart from that, I mean, that you pretty much had to expect with 13 matches. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down, and of course. We thank everyone also for being with us on the ride the last couple of days. As the Twitterverse has been going crazy, and we thank everyone for the interaction. Of course, you could always find us on Twitter at Rockamaniac00, at Rowdy Wrestling, and what's the new one? Tony Mixtabile, is that what it is?
That's right. Thank you for taking the lead on that one.
Yeah, and of course our lovely sponsors, Heels and Faces, have a big sale going on this weekend, Tony.
That's right.
Just use code SLAM and you're going to get 20% off your order. So get some nice shirts, actually look decent, wrestling themed t-shirt, but actually decent looking clothes, people. There you go. Heelsandfaces.com. Our plugs are done. Tony's dead, so apparently I have to do this right now. And of course you could check out this show, whether it be on your favorite podcasting app, whether it be on youtube.com, whether it be on iTunes, wherever you're tuning in tonight. Thank you for tuning in to the Rowdy Wrestling Podcast. So we're going to break it down. We're going to start off with NXT Takeover, Tony.
That's right, NXT Takeover. I'm going to say from this morning, just for me, because I'm going to pop myself, but this is the typical SummerSlam thing that we've done for 3 years, and we're going to have again next year in the same building, 4 nights in a row, NXT, SummerSlam, Raw, and SmackDown. We started last night with, I'm going to say, a show that included the match of the weekend, right up until you saw the main event of tonight's show, because that 4-way was just something magical. But we started off with Andrade Cien Almas with Zelina Vega, which is, you have to point out there, because I think that's a turning point for this guy's character, versus Johnny Gargano. For an opening match, these guys got 13 minutes, the third longest match of the night, and they went balls to the wall. And the crowd knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted some Johnny wrestling, and Andrade Cien Almas showing a lot of character, but in the right action for this match. Both of these guys going back and forth. Gargano hitting always a great spot where he does the spear through the middle ropes, just where he pulls himself in. The finish, after a great back-and-forth match, saw Zelina Vega throwing a DIY T-shirt at Johnny Gargano to essentially distract him. Andrade picks up the somewhat clean win here. As we had discussed in the pre-show, who needed the victory going forward. I said Gargano kind of has the Sami Zayn, El Generico vibe to him, where he can lose as long as he looks good in his matches, and it's only going to make him go up the card. And Andrade certainly needed the win here, but both of these guys put on a fantastic match, which, one, helped Andrade, and two, furthered this I guess it's going to be a slow build, smoldering storyline to continue Gargano versus Ciampa. What did you think of the match?
See, that's the thing. I want to give a huge props to the booking team, to the agent team, whoever came up with
continuity.
Not only the continuity, but just the the smartness of that finish. As the DIY shirt gets in the fact that you have a storyline that is kind of on hold at the moment, but it doesn't take or away from or hurt Johnny Gargano by losing this matchup to Cien Almas. And that, as you alluded to, that is something that we talked about. As I was saying, Johnny Gargano is in the midst of a push right here. You can't really hurt him at this point. And you were pointing out that Cien Almas was in the midst of finally getting a push after having been somewhat of a jobber over the last year or so on the NXT Takeover shows. So I thought this was a genius finish. The match also really proved that Gargano as a singles wrestler is going to be money in the WWE. So I thought that was extremely well done. He was over like you could not imagine in that arena, man. Johnny Wrestling was over, and that's what I loved even more about this match is because, once the finish actually went down, Cien Almas got a huge pop for the win as well, despite the fact that it was somewhat of a heel win in the sense that it wasn't completely clean. He got a huge pop by the end of this match as well. Throughout this matchup, great action. You had an opening matchup that got that crowd going. They were on fire. And I also wanted to mention that on that opening segment, just before the match started, I kind of liked the innovative idea of having the band play while you had the live intro video going and mixing in the two. I thought it was, the start of a few different innovative ideas throughout the night that NXT was trying throughout the show, and I liked that as well. So it was a hot start. I thought it was perfectly booked. They had a great match, and so really it was obvious that NXT TakeOver was starting off on the right foot at that point.
Yeah, couldn't disagree with you at all. That was one thing you and we rarely do touch upon is the production value. NXT last night, holy crap. I mean, you had 3 live bands playing. As per the usual, I mean, a lot of guys had very special intros. Very few people had anything that was just straight up normal. So that's always fun because it makes the show feel huge. And that's something I think WWE on their side of things, like they'll only give 1 or 2 guys or 1 or 2 of the bigger characters a special intro on the larger pay-per-views. This makes, regardless who it is, feel really, really big. I mean, look at the main event just for a quick second. Here's a guy who is in 3MB, and I know we have the example with Jinder Mahal, but let's look at him. In Drew McIntyre, he was a throwaway, he was nothing, and they played it up the entire night. This is a guy who was in 3MB. This is a guy who failed in WWE. He was the chosen one, and he petered out. He had to go away, learn, grow, and come back. And they gave him, I thought that was really cool. What was it, the police band with all the bagpipes? I thought that was just so awesome when he came out and they did his intro that way. That was really cool. Aside from that, I mean, just an amazing night for those matches, and which did lead into something that I was very warm on in the pre-show when we were talking about the NXT Tag Team Championships, where you had the Authors of Pain defending against Sanity, and you brought up the fact you weren't sure how the heel-face dynamic would play here. They flip-flopped in this match who the heels and who the faces were representing. Wasn't that something weird?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this matchup was another example of kind of what I was touching on a moment ago, where I think they were testing some things out that you normally wouldn't do on their weekly shows or on even their monthly pay-per-views, and they were seeing what worked. And this was another example. This matchup, started hot because you had the brawl outside the ring. I love the fact that they set up the table and everyone forgot about it. And then of course I love the idea that they did a basically spin-off hybrid of the Freebird rule, where Eric Young decides to get into the match because Killian Dane never tagged into the match.
For me, that makes total sense. I sit back as a wrestling fan and I go, you know what? That makes sense. I have no arguments on that.
Absolutely, but it's just something you never really ever saw, and so I immediately thought of the Freebirds, and I was like, wow, maybe it was Michael Hayes that came up with it backstage, since he is an integral part of the NXT roster and management. But I thought that was really good, and throughout this matchup, like you pointed out, they're kind of flip flopping. This matchup, in many ways, was the coming out party for Alexander Wolf. He got a huge rub, much like, as we'll talk about in the main event of tonight's SummerSlam show, where all of a sudden, Braun Strowman got pushed to another level. Alexander Wolf got a huge push in this match. I think it was really his coming out party, and a great back and forth tag team matchup, showing that, hey, we've got some great tag teams down here in NXT, and it's something we kind of touched on in the pre-show as well, where it's like, okay, the main event roster is kind of suffering in the tag team division right now. So do Authors of Pain possibly go up? And, Vince McMahon likes big guys. So they drop the titles here, and we get new tag team champions. Sanity, of course, winning the titles, but not before the awesome table spot outside the ring as Nikki Cross jumps onto, who was it again? Who did she land on? Well, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. It was one of the two big guys.
Yeah, one of the two them, and then he gets freaking speared into the table that I actually forgot that it was in that exact spot.
Yep, same here.
So I really had to put that over. I thought it was a perfect example of setting something up so early on that we actually forgot about it. So that was really cool. Another great tag team matchup, and we get our first surprise of the night at that point, Tony.
Yeah, well, listen, I texted you 3 holy shits, one after another, and then you throw out a name, and I go, no, that would merit 10 of them. And lo and behold, it's Red Dragon, which they weren't called that, but they did. Mauro Ronaldo did drop their finish, which is Chasing the Dragon. So that was really cool. So they beat down both teams. So with the Authors of Pain losing, I immediately started to think, oh, okay, so these guys are going to go to the main roster soon. They definitely need to liven that up on both brands. And then Red Dragon attacks both of them. So you're sitting there, I'm like, all right, so you technically have 3 heel teams right now on the NXT Tag Division, but it doesn't matter because you have such good teams. So it could just be a bunch of people that hate each other. So I don't know where they're going to go with this. Are they going to try and, keep everybody around just a little while longer, do a 3-way feud for the belts? What do you think?
I think right now this is one of the bigger pay-per-views of the year. Obviously, we with WrestleMania and now SummerSlam. Survivor Series is less of a big pay-per-view, and Royal Rumble's kind of that transition big pay-per-view to start leading into WrestleMania season. So you don't do major changes after Royal Rumble, and so I could see the call-ups going down now. And also, of course, we saw earlier in the show that Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle were there and playing off as if they were scouting. Maybe another, it was already rumored a roster shakeup could be coming. And if that's the case, we could be seeing some NXT stars coming up. As Kurt Angle was there to see Asuka, and he was looking for Asuka.
Asuka?
Yeah.
Oh, is it Asuka?
Yes, Asuka.
That's how it's spelled.
So that's I think he dropped that in the pre-show interview. Like it was like, oh, Kurt, no. Like,
here's the thing: you're giving Kurt hell, but here's William Regal calling Asuka every week as well.
Yeah, well, I guess slightly better, but whatever.
You let the Brit get away with it?
Yeah, because he has an accent, so I'll give it to him. But
Kurt Angle is a deviated septum. Can't you hear him?
I guess so, and so they are teasing that maybe they get the Authors of Pain out there. Otherwise, you could do the three-way. Either way, I don't have an objection to that. And I also want to point out at this point in time of the show, we get another interesting moment, pretty much a mark-out moment. You already have Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly coming back together as Red Dragon on NXT.
As they should be, damn it.
As they should be. And then we get the best possible thing ever in commentary. Jim Ross and Mauro Ranallo on the same announce team. The IWC collectively came all over Twitter at that point.
Oh, God.
It was like, oh, man, this was awesome. They could have put two invisible men in the ring and commentary would have got that over at that point. But, we then had, of course, Hideo Itami and Aleister Black. It was time for the head kick party.
They did something I didn't expect. In the pre-show, in the preview, I was the first one going like, they can't do anything with this match. It's just been a Tommy looking like a bitch and then head kick. And then you said it right there, head kick party. These guys, ow. Straight up ow. Mm-hmm. And like one of them actually caught Aleister Black right in the nose. So, he's busted open, which I think helped the match 100%. It made it look that much more like just vicious. So it didn't even look like this was a competitive match so much. It was just two guys like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to kick. Forget everything else. It's just, let's kick the shit out of each other's brains.
Yeah, and Jim Ross had set it up on commentary before the match even started. He's like, these two guys, it's going to be all about head kicks. And so, Jim Ross did his homework with them backstage and set that up. And then the head kick party ensues. Another great match. I think this was finally Hideo Itami, getting a chance. Found his spot,
I think.
That's it. He got back.
His heel groove.
Exactly. It was heel mode engage, as I tweeted, when he, sat down and mocked Aleister Black with his own sit-down pose. And I loved it. It was a moment that was really nice to see because Hideo Itami's had just such bad luck during his NXT run. And this was hopefully the start of him finally getting to reach his maximum potential here. And let's, knock on wood and cross our fingers that nothing happens and he actually gets that chance, because last night was a prime example of what he can do.
Yep. And honestly, I'm eating my words. It was a far better match I was expecting out of these two.
Oh yeah, I mean, really, at that point, we're three matches in, and they're 3 for 3.
Oh, I mean, not just good matches, great matches.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at that point, you're already thinking to yourself, wow, they're laying down the gauntlet once again, and they weren't even done. They still had other matches to go, and going into the next match, we had Asuka and Ember Moon for the women's title. A lot of debate. I mean, we debated about it on the pre-show. A lot of debate as to what they should do with this matchup, with the result, with the finish. Even on the Twitterverse, at the last second, I threw up a poll for 5 minutes before the match was to start, just to see, okay, who's your final thought, people? And it came in at 51%, 49, and it was staying at 50-50 for the most of the part. And people barely leaning with Asuka as the match was about to start. So, at that point, we had another great women's match, Tony.
Yeah, well, the story that these girls told was Asuka almost being worried at this point that this might happen, and Ember Moon essentially being frustrated that everything she's throwing at Asuka's able to absorb, counter, or just kick out of. And I for one, just this was the best women's match I've seen in God knows how long, and we've had some really great stuff. And once this match happened, this was for me the match of the night for NXT. The story we were talking about here, what should they do? Should Asuka lose? Should Asuka win? Where are they going with Asuka? Is she just going to go up to the main roster and defeat, and they have to do that? They so much played up the fact that she's undefeated. They talked about it. They talked about all the records. They went out of their way to make sure that, yes, undefeated. And so eventually when you're getting towards the end of the match, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, they're actually going to do it. They're going to give it to Ember Moon. She's going to beat Asuka. And when Asuka, does her one, she did two fuckeries. The one where she rolled up Ember Moon and held on the tights. Ember Moon was able to kick out. And then when Ember Moon went back for to do her second, springboard stunner? Or no, not springboard, just top rope twisting stunner thing. Mm-hmm. Asuka holding the ref in the way, so she had to move out of the way, and that's where Asuka was able to catch and roll her and then go into the submission. So I thought that was incredibly well done, and even me, in my ways, I got caught up in the moment and I got pissed off, and finally I felt a little heat. The unfortunate part is the people in New York were most certainly on Asuka's side, and Ember Moon got booed. So, and they still worked the typical dynamic, and after a while, naturally, Ember had won them over, because if you do a match well enough, people are going to play into the roles. But wow, I was cheering on Ember Moon at one point for this.
Yeah, going into it, I talked about how, I got the idea of the fact that, if Asuka's going to be going up to the main roster after this weekend, I get the idea that, the champ is supposed to drop the title before leaving a territory. But I felt like this has to be an exception to the rule. We discussed that. We said, should she just win and then leave the title or release the title maybe on NXT television, just to be like, I'm going up to the main roster. This is no longer competition. And luckily she did win, but I thought this was perfectly booked despite the fact that she won. They actually really gave a nice rub to Ember Moon in this matchup. They played off perfect psychology and storytelling there, where they actually said, hey, Ember Moon might be able to finally do this. And you see the worry on Asuka's face. I thought it was so well played out. They thought about it. They executed it. And ultimately, Ember Moon taps out. Asuka retains, exactly what you want. And so I give props to the booking team. And also, I then think, and give me your thoughts. I mean, Asuka, what do you do next? Do you immediately bring her up to the roster at this point? Or do you do one last thing where you make her wait for the winner of the Mae Young Classic and have her defend against that person before going up to the main roster?
Well, see, that's a really weird thing, because if you make her go up against the winner of the Mae Young Classic, that lady's got to win. If not, that entire tournament just goes to shit.
But what if they do? What if they do a similar match to what they did with Ember Moon?
If they do a similar match with what they did to Ember Moon, it doesn't really work, because Ember Moon didn't win a 32-woman tournament to get to that point. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You're essentially, in my mind, you're derailing the person who wins, and okay. I wouldn't want to do that. Ember Moon, had already gotten a couple of losses, so they petered her out and they brought her back, and peaks and valleys. But this girl, whoever's gonna win, I mean, she's got to come in fucking strong. So then, yeah, if she does face, in my mind, you have the winner of the women's tournament beat Asuka, and that's it. So in my mind, you just, to avoid that, because I would kind of hate to. How much of a rub would it get for the person to win against Asuka, and how much of a deter would it be for Asuka to lose? Is the juice worth the squeeze in that circumstance? So I personally, I would keep them completely separate. I wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole.
All right, so I get what you mean. So do you bring her up now?
Look at the women's divisions now. On Raw, it would have made sense had Alexa Bliss retained tonight, because then you can easily just go into that Asuka versus Alexa Bliss thing.
Tony's still in denial of the result for tonight as well.
Let's not even talk about it. I love that promo, by the way. You called it 100% on Twitter.
Yes.
And that immediately means if she's all over the promo for No Mercy, then it's going to be Sasha versus Alexa Bliss, at No Mercy. So we already know that the automatic rematch is going to go on there, and probably they're going to start flip-flopping like they did last year with the women's title on Raw.
Right.
So you never know what's going to happen there. And then if you look on the SmackDown side of things, maybe they're getting ready for it because they put the belt on Natalya.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalya versus Asuka, I mean, you're guaranteed to have a good match right there.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
That is, if they have a bad match, God is just shitting on everyone. That's essentially what's happening right there.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll see what happens, obviously, and of course, then we were moving on to the main event, and you blasted me the other day because I did a horrible transition from the Ric Flair thing, mentioning Ric Flair's sickness, and then just transitioning into
let's
things
talk to some people about Ric Flair. Wait, we should talk about Ric Flair for a quick moment. Derail the review. We got some good news.
Yes, he did.
Ric Flair cut a promo on a nurse.
Yes,
he's
he
doing
did.
good, guys.
There you go. He's cutting promo on nurses. Ric Flair is styling and profiling. Even in a hospital bed in a gown, he's styling and profiling. So, yes, he's doing better. Still battling some issues, obviously.
Not out of the woods, but
Ric Flair
promos were good.
Ric Flair, obviously, enjoying his alcoholic treats, and it's catching up with him.
How many sponge baths has he requested?
That's the thing. I bet she cut a promo on a nurse, just looking to get one of those. So, it's good to hear. And, obviously, it also was nice to see the photo that Charlotte tweeted out today, her holding her dad's hand, saying that he was doing better. So that was really cool to see. And, of course, what I was transitioning to was to mention the fact that I got chills last night watching that main event intro because, Drew McIntyre gets a, bagpipe band to play him to the ring. And first few seconds of that was Roddy Piper's theme song.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just chills up and down the body, and all over Twitter at the same time. They were like, whoa, because it was clear as day that it was the first few seconds of Roddy Piper's theme song. And that was definitely a chilling moment as he came out to the ring.
I would have let it play the entire way. I would have been like, forget my theme, boys, just keep going.
That's it.
But here's a lot of... All right, it was not match of the night. I'm going to put that out there for all the people who do bitch and moan that I'm a Bobby Roode mark. It was not match of the night. But in my mind, it was a very fucking good match. These guys told a wonderful story. Bobby Roode, and this is... I'm going to get some flack here, and Terry's probably going to call me out on this, because I'm going to make a comparison here. Far too often you have wrestling companies go ahead and just put the company over. We're TNA, blah, 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 blah. Here are two TNA guys, and I'm putting Drew McIntyre, for all intents and purposes right now, as a TNA guy until he gets back up to the main roster. He spends a little more time in NXT, talking about them being the face of the brand. Where Bobby Roode was saying, this is my NXT, and Drew McIntyre through the entire build-up going, no, we are NXT.
And Dixie Carter was crying in the crowd.
Yeah, Dixie Carter. So, for me, I thought this was really well built. You have a guy who goes in there who's your archetype heel. He's like, no, this is my place. This is mine, as opposed to a guy who's saying, no, this is ours. And... so you had the double story here. You had me versus we, and you had Drew McIntyre's redemption story. And I thought that was so brilliantly told. At the very end when Bobby Roode tried to go for his double, impaler DDT, and Drew McIntyre was able to reverse out of it, go ahead and give him the Claymore kick. I thought that was a wonderful finish right there. That told a beautiful story of a guy being able to overcome the adversity and all that shit to go ahead and win. So the match itself, I thought was very well played up. You have two guys who, in my mind, should not be in NXT, should most certainly be on the main roster and shouldn't be very high up. And, you hear all the stories. Bobby Roode's, pegged for something really big once he gets to the main roster. Is this his exodus? Maybe it is, for how you saw what happened at the end of the match. And this is where I sent you the 10 holy shits.
Right. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to the post-match thing in a moment. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this matchup because when we were previewing the weekend, I kind of alluded to the fact that Bobby Roode and the entrance, and is he just an entrance, and the quality of match that he does in NXT, and and that's been a debate that has been going on really for a while now, and a lot of people, get excited for a Bobby Roode main event matchup at TakeOver, but then are kind of let down for some reason or the other. And I couldn't put my finger really on why, and I couldn't really explain why that was the case. Even I was having somewhat of that feeling.
Okay.
But last night when I was watching this matchup, it finally clicked in my mind. So, first off, Bobby Roode comes out, and Brooklyn crowd. You got to give take a second here to put over the Brooklyn crowd from this weekend. They did. They were hot pretty much the entire weekend, and I mean they were nearly louder than the entire freaking speaker system in the building as the theme song is playing. They're singing "Glorious" louder than the song is playing. Almost,
yeah, they took it over,
and. The intro was amazing, like you would normally expect it to be. And then the match starts. And it was at that point that they start doing their match. They took a nice little slow pace at the beginning. They, picked it up. And they did the big, series of false finishes at the end. And everyone got excited. And then they hit their finish and so on and so forth. And it was a good match. Some great storytelling, like you pointed out. I agree with everything that you said about that, but I finally figured out what was wrong with the Bobby Roode matches on NXT.
Go on.
And so think about the fact that we had just came through 4 amazing matchups on the undercard of this show, and think about all the undercard matchups that we normally have on these NXT TakeOver shows leading to those main events. Now, think about the match that Bobby Roode and Drew McIntyre had, and picture that match happening on a main roster card, on a main roster pay-per-view or a main roster television show. If you put that on a main roster pay-per-view or a main roster TV show, it's a great match. It would be praised. It would be loved. It would be accepted in the flow of the night of a pay-per-view, and people would definitely put it over. Bobby Roode is putting on what I consider WWE main roster type matchup, and because that you're coming off of those NXT type matchups that you get super excited for, the matchup is so different that it kind of gives you that little feeling like, yeah, this is not as good as what I was just watching. And that's kind of what I felt when I was watching the matchup. Then in retrospect, as I sat back after the pay-per-view, I said to myself, it was still a really good matchup. If I put this on a pay-per-view WWE, if I put that, let's say, tonight on SummerSlam and took out Big Show versus Cass, that matchup would have been perfect right there on the card. And, the card would have been that much better because of it. So I think if you're the NXT type of crowd that, really loves those NXT matchups, maybe Bobby Roode's match is not the match that you're always looking forward to. And that's kind of what clicked in my mind last night.
That makes sense. What he's giving you is where he's at and what he feels the company is expecting of him.
Exactly. It's a guy trying to show hey, I'm ready to go to the main roster. And he is doing that in hopes of obviously getting there. But I don't feel like Shinsuke was doing that. You know what I mean? Like, Shinsuke was still having his type of matchup.
Well, Shinsuke was having his NXT the NXT version of his New Japan matches.
Well, yeah, that was to be expected though. But I still feel like even though he was doing the NXT version of his Japan matches, that it was still his type of style in the sense that once he moved up that card and got to that main event roster spot just before getting called up to the main roster, he never modified it to try to say, I'm your main event guy. I don't know if you get what I'm saying here.
Where I understand. I see where you're going.
You know, that's, you know, Bobby Roode's trying to say, I'm your main event roster guy. I'm that guy. Watch. I'm going to do a main event roster pay-per-view match right now. And I feel like Shinsuke didn't do that. So that's where it's kind of the difference I'm thinking about Bobby Roode. And that's not to put him down. That's not to put that match down. I thought they did a good match. I have no problem with anything they did. I thought they did some great storytelling, but that conversation has come up fairly often over the last little while, and that maybe sheds some light on why some people say, oh well, Bobby Roode is just an intro guy, right?
Yeah, but that's half of the WWE roster nowadays being intro guys.
Oh, no doubt. But, you know, and we'll get
to that. Until Kevin
Dunn
Dunn gets at you.
We'll get to that when we talk about Enzo's promo tonight. But, yes, God. Let's get to the awesome finish of this pay-per-view.
Yeah. Or should we say the Bebe finish?
Bebe.
Everything goes down. Drew McIntyre is your new champion. He barely gets any time to soak it in. They even put on the little graphic at the bottom of the screen to let you know, oh, the show's over. And then the crowd starts to look in one direction. Drew McIntyre turns in that direction. And there's Red Dragon up on the apron. Now, to anybody not knowing any of the news, you'd be like, oh, these guys are just coming into shit disturb. But those who had been following, and, you know, guys like myself who are huge fans of Adam Cole, realize he's here. Turns around, gets super kicked. Red Dragon then beat him down a little bit. They hold him. He super kicks him again. And then the three of them stand over a downed Drew McIntyre, essentially setting up your next feud. And what I'm really happy, somewhat surprised when you think that Vince owns this company, but this is NXT, so it's likely all, you know, Triple H and whoever's writing the show. We have an ROH faction going on here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, ghosts are real, Tony. Adam Cole is not dead. He is in NXT. And, of course, we kind of, for those who follow the news, you knew the fact that he was in town. He was obviously stuck in an airport with the entire NXT roster, being delayed for 7 hours as they screwed around like a bunch of kids.
Some of them was 19 hours.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, you know, they're screwing around in an airport, and of course, Adam Cole's with them. So, and you know, even though this is NXT and Triple H has a major influence on this, of course, Adam Cole's a guy who has a lot of main roster support. I mean, guys like Kevin Steen, obviously not only just being in the crowd, but tweeting out late last night that amongst his favorite moments in NXT is
his favorite moments
Adam
in WWE.
Yeah, in WWE, that matter, yes.
His debut, his NXT win, beating up John Cena.
And the debut of Adam Cole. So, you know, a great moment as Adam Cole comes out, lays out McIntyre, and then poses with the NXT title. It's like a surreal moment. We have an ROH faction in NXT, so it changed from NXT Takeover to #ROH Takeover at that point. But you know, really a cool moment to close the show. The off-air angle, well, not an angle really, but just the off-air moment was Adam Cole doing the Adam Cole Bebe pose on the ramp and on the off-air segment of the show. Just awesome finish to the show. An awesome night from NXT. And at that point, I was just like, all right.
They've done it again.
They've not only done it again, but I it popped into my mind the cheesiest of all lines, like to say that, you know, Sheamus and Cesaro say it all the time, right? But, you know, it's they, you know, the whole bar line, right? You know, so NXT once again proved that they are the bar when it comes to big pay-per-view weekends. And they sent the message to that main event roster, like, try to beat that, try to top that. And there's been times where the Sunday night show was not able to do that.
Not even get close to it.
No, but WrestleMania, they were able to.
Yep. But I think that was the first time that it was above and beyond.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And this time it was like, wow, they just set the bar high. And you know, whether it be tag team wrestling, whether it be women's wrestling, whether it be you know, the main event, whether it be even the opener for that matter, they had set the bar. So you know, our official poll looking for grading of the show last night, you know, by far runaway. You know, 83% voting a full-on A grade for last night's NXT Takeover show, and 14% giving it a B. So, you know, the majority of fans not only enjoyed this show, but saw that it had really taken it to another level last night. So you have to give a round of applause pretty much to the entire NXT staff. They really delivered last night.
So a question to you in this case, what was your match of the night?
You know what? The matchup of the night, it's you know...
Gun to your head.
All right. Gun to my head. Last night, main event was not the match of the night.
It was good, but not great.
Exactly. It was good, but it was not great. Asuka and Ember Moon pretty close to being that matchup of the night. I'm honestly debating between Asuka and also the opener, but I'm going to lean with the opener just because I love the fact of the way they actually did the finish. But the booking in both of those kind of make it 1A and 1B for me. So, but I'll give a slight edge to the opener, and that's just wow to think that match. You know, it was the matchup of the night, and imagine how the show was. It's just insane to think of how great of a show that was. You know, NXT, you know, is the New Japan of the WWE, and they put it on last night for sure.
For virtually the same reasons as you, I have it flipped. I have the women's match being the best one of the night, followed by just the tiniest of margins by the opener.
Awesome.
So then let's move on over to tonight. Let's move and shake to the 13 match night we had. Now, I'll be honest, unfortunately, I only know the finishes of the pre-show. Steve, you got to see it. So let's quickly touch on all of these. Beginning of the night, SummerSlam 2017, you had The Miz and the Miz-Tourage defeating the Hardy Boys and Jason Jordan.
So this whole you know, pre-show idea is something that, you know, we've talked about in the sense that when we're having these big pay-per-view nights, we're getting 6-7 hour shows. And one of the problems with that, especially for arena shows, as opposed to WrestleMania, but even WrestleMania, it was kind of the fact, at least for the opener this year, you know, ticket times don't always reflect the fact that, you know, the show is actually going to start that early.
Well, here, let's actually put a caveat on that.
Yeah.
They only made the pre-show 2 hours instead of 90 minutes, I believe, as of Thursday. So a lot of people's tickets really didn't include that it was a half hour earlier.
Okay, good point. And obviously a lot of people, you know, refer to their tickets, so I'm not going to say anything elsewise. But I mean, I'm surprised, to be quite honest with you, that they didn't announce it was 2 hours until Thursday, because we pretty much assumed that it was going to be 2 hours from the get-go.
That's what they usually do now in the big
exactly.
shows.
So ultimately, this opening matchup on the pre-show ended up being an empty arena match. And it wasn't announced that way, and obviously they didn't really say that, but it was an empty arena match. You look around, there was no one there. The entire floor was empty. There's a photo. I tweeted it out on Twitter, so you could see it. It was empty. There was no one there, and these guys, you have the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys, who got one of the biggest pops, if not the biggest pop of WrestleMania this year, teaming up with Jason Jordan to take on The Miz and Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas in an empty arena. That is not supposed to be an empty arena match. So it was sad to see in many ways, because these guys were trying to maybe get some sort of reaction from the crowd, and there's no crowd. So it's sad to think that that these guys are actually had to go out there. And they should have just delayed it as much as they could. They should have shuffled on the go and said, okay, whatever interviews or whatever packages we're going to show later on, let's push it up. There's no one in the arena. Call an audible. Do something. But this matchup...
Stick to the game plan, brother.
Oh, God. Listen, pal. You go out there and you wrestle, pal. Okay, anyways. So... basic match, not much to say. They built that Jason Jordan was in the ring. They built towards the Jason Jordan hot tag, really. And it looked as though that Jordan was eventually going to finish off, I think it was Curtis Axel at that point, because after the hot tag, he got, beat them down and was about to seemingly finish off Axel. And Axel somehow gets a tag into the Miz. Miz comes in, skull crashing finale. That's it. And so a Raw caliber type matchup for an empty arena.
Mid-show Raw caliber.
Yeah, totally. And I don't blame them. There was no one there. Why even try?
At least Kurt was watching, because he referenced it later on.
And I don't want anybody to say, well, why do you say, why even try? I understand that people go to indie shows and you try your best no matter what, 10 people, 20 people, 50 people. That's not what I mean. I don't want you to, twist it in the wrong way.
No, what you were talking about is the fact that nobody was in the arena yet.
Exactly. So, there's no one there, and they got bumped from SummerSlam, and they're on the first match of the pre-show, and there's no one in the arena, and you're having this random match that really no one knew was going to happen. And I think they only confirmed this match actually a couple of days ago, like you pointed out. So it pretty much ended up being what we could have possibly expected from it. Once you say, hey, these three guys are going to face these three guys, we're going to announce it 2 days before the show, and they're going to be in the opening match of the pre-show. So they gave what you expected out of it, and therefore we'll just leave it at that. Next up, we had the Cruiserweight title match as Akira Tozawa took on Neville. And, which
is a rematch from their Raw match, yes, which was originally scheduled for this pay-per-view, but they decided to do it earlier.
Yes, and now this was, a complete different situation in the sense that they actually had a pretty good matchup. They gave it their all and had some intensity and some reaction because crowd was actually starting to get into the building by then. So they did have a crowd behind them. And so they had a decent little match. And ultimately, and this was something we debated about, Neville gets the title back. And,
what purpose
did
that
that's
serve?
what I said the other day, right? I said, well, what's the point? And I think you said to me, well, they've done it before, right? And yeah, and ultimately they did it again. So I'm somewhat disappointed at the fact that they did that, but I guess it is what it is. And the Cruiserweight division, I don't think we need to get into that conversation again, but it's really obviously missing something.
Which then immediately segues into another title change. The Usos defeated the New Day to become the tag team champions of SmackDown again. Why?
That's right. Well, Elias got booed out of the building and no one cared. And this, I think, started...
Elias was there?
Oh, yeah, Elias was there.
Okay.
He sang a couple songs.
Oh, really? That was a part of the pre-show. The 2-hour they boosted the pre-show from 90 minutes to 2 hours to have Elias sing.
That's right. They booed him heavily. And
It hurts.
Yep. It was horrible. But then we got, like, as you pointed out, the tag match, and began what was it, 5 title changes throughout the night?
Well, that was the second of the title changes.
That's right. You're right. So now it feels as though, and I forget who pointed this out. Someone pointed it out, but I'm just, you know what? I don't know if it was Guppy or someone that Guppy retweeted or someone. Anyways, I'm just too tired. It's now past midnight. Someone pointed out the fact that maybe they did this. Oh, I think it was Ryan Satin. He pointed out that fact that they probably did 5 title changes just due to the fact that, Jinder and Brock were going to retain, so that they were trying to show, like, hey, we did a bunch of title changes. Don't be upset about the fact that these 2 guys are going to retain. So I feel as if that he might have a point there, because this is what was happening here is, Neville getting that title back. We didn't need that to happen. And then we got the tag team matchup as well. And I must say, though, despite the fact that of what we say about the title changes, this was a great tag team matchup. It's rare on the main event roster we get to see a great tag team matchup, and I can say that tonight we got that in this matchup. Big E and Xavier was against the Usos. Great match. They not only saw last night's matchup and therefore said, okay, guys, let's step up our game, but they delivered. And so I really have to give props to them for that. They showed that, tag team wrestling can be good on the main roster if they actually try and give it a chance. Obviously the long-term continuity is a problem because due to the lack of depth of the roster, but when they want to deliver in an actual matchup, they can do so. And they did that in this matchup, and the Usos get the titles back. And, well, what do you think about that, Tony?
So I have nothing against the Usos being champions. It's just the fact that it felt very much like a flip-flop title change, and it plays exactly into what you were saying, is that we're going to get a bunch of title changes to make up for the fact that the 2 main titles, where people were kind of expecting and kind of hoping for title changes, we didn't get.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But then nonetheless, I have to say, as far as pre-show matches are concerned, it was probably the best pre-show match that I could think of in a long time. So, these guys do deserve some big props for taking that challenge from the NXT tag team roster and delivering tonight, despite the fact that they weren't on the main event roster card, that they were on the pre-show. They actually were able to deliver and listen to that challenge that they got from NXT. So that was one of those examples to play off of what we said earlier, that, these guys took that challenge and lived up to it. And so we thought that, the pre-show was pretty much over at that point, but then we got the showstopper, Tony.
So this is hang on, you and I spoke very quickly about this off air. What? I saw this. I saw this on the main show and thought this was weird.
Yeah.
What the fuck did they do?
We all saw this weird Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, of course, featuring pretty much a large chunk of the roster, many of which did not even make the actual show.
Did you get a confused boner with the Becky Lynch Colonel?
Oh, well, no, not really.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just you.
I'm asking for a friend.
Oh, okay. Let it be noted, he's asking for a friend. So, I see this commercial playing out, and I say to myself, oh, well, okay, well, we've got our Andre the Giant Battle Royal version of SummerSlam here because, we have a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial with people who can't get on the actual show. So I'm like, does that count as a SummerSlam payday for people, being on the KFC commercial? I'm like, maybe they paid enough to give them all some money. And then And then as I start to think this, it becomes quite evident that KFC was ready to sink some major money into this, because Shawn Michaels' music hits, and you're kind of confused because you get what is kind of a spin-off of his intro video, where instead of seeing H, B, and K, you see K, F, and C, and you're like, okay, Shawn Michaels' music is playing. And then Shawn Michaels comes out dressed up as the freaking Colonel Sanders, and not only live, this is live in the freaking arena, and goes down to the ring and poses and goes all over the place in a freaking Colonel Sanders getup. And I think to myself, I jokingly say, of course, Shawn Michaels is sold out. But then I think to myself, wow, KFC paid enough money to convince Shawn Michaels to do this. Like, and part of that is, Shawn Michaels just having fun. I mean, he's still part of the company. He works a little bit with NXT and Triple H behind the scenes right now. So, he's a company guy. He always will be. He obviously got paid for it. Didn't necessarily have to say, a large amount to the point where, it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that unless you give me this. But nonetheless, it was a weird moment to see that Shawn Michaels was like out there dressed as Colonel Sanders, doing a live run-in on the arena. And later on when they replayed it, they replayed the commercial, and I say to myself, oh, is Shawn Michaels coming back out? And no, they just play little highlights. And Tony, you had not seen the run-in on the pre-show.
Nope.
So off the air, Tony said, when we're discussing this, Tony says to me, well, that was, when did they tape that? Like, which arena, or did they tape that? That was live tonight in the arena, and it was quite the scene to see.
That it didn't break my heart. I was going to say it broke my heart, but hey, everybody's got to get paid. Everybody has a price. $1 Million Man was right.
He doesn't want to wrestle, so hey, he still makes huge money. There you go. All right, so main event roster time.
Yeah, about freaking time we get to it. Now we're with that 2-hour pre-show and the 2-hour NXT Takeover, 3-hour Takeover show. We're already 5 hours of wrestling into this weekend. Imagine that. And we're not even at the main pay-per-view yet.
And this isn't New Japan, so the fact that you'd be 5 hours into your weekend on New Japan would be one thing, but we're in 5 hours on WWE at this point. So we're finally going to the main roster at this point, and Jerry Lawler, I think it was Jerry Lawler, says like, "Oh, we've got at least 4 hours ahead of ourselves." And I'm like, "Oh boy, we've got a long night ahead of us, Tony."
Oh yeah, we do. All right, so that long night actually started relatively short. John Cena beating Baron Corbin clean in the middle of the ring.
Boy, oh boy. We talked about this on the pre-show, and, it was funny, and I also ultimately retweeted just pretty much the best meme out there for this, as the MMA Trader says, logical booking says Cena cost Baron the Money in the Bank contracts, so he should win here as revenge. Vince McMahon booking says, and you see John Cena and a photo of him like putting up the Money in the Bank contract that he had won at one point. But it's a meme of Vince McMahon saying Cena wins, LOL. And we discussed this. You were kind of like, well, Super Cena is going to win, right? And, well, we discussed, I'm like, well, can they really do that to Corbin at this point? I mean, Cena could just lose and go to Raw, right? Give him the rub and go to Raw. No. It's full-on burial. Full-on burial mode of Baron Corbin right now. And you have to wonder what he did to lose the confidence of the company. I mean, coming out
matches, look stupid, no personality on TV, Twitter feuds with about everybody.
Well, there you go.
Should I continue?
No, that's all right. I think we've gotten our answer now. So, he's gone from
bad matches.
He's gone from being the guy who we have long-term plans for, who's going to be the champion.
Mr.
Keep
Kennedy.
in mind, Mr. Kennedy, yes. So keep in mind, this was being said at the same time. about Baron Corbin and Jinder Mahal. They came out of WrestleMania. They sat down. They said, okay, who's like our two next guys that we want to build up this year? Like who are not already, over top main event guys. So they said Baron Corbin, Jinder Mahal. Now look at what happened. Jinder Mahal is still champion coming out of tonight. And Baron Corbin is, pretty much going nowhere. Super Cena wins.
On his way to a couple of indie dates before he stops getting booked.
Well, that's what we asked. And, of course, for those are out there listening to the podcast today, you can still get in on this. All our polls are up at Rowdy Wrestling or at Rockamaniac00. So we asked, after that match, what would you do with Baron Corbin next? And Tony will get your vote here. Would you send him back to NXT, send him over to Raw, keep him in SmackDown undercard, or just full out release him?
It's a weird time of year. It all depends what they're going to do. If they do a roster switch up and he remains on SmackDown, he's probably going to get released within the next 2-3 months. That's the way I'm seeing it. And it really sucks because on a human level, you never want to see a person lose their jobs. Because at the end of the day, he's a bloke like you and I, if I can take some other culture's slang. But he's not, I don't think he's fit for wrestling. I really don't. I don't see a personality in him. He ain't really that good. So I personally, I would be happy not having to see him on my TV for the fact that I have to sit through 6 hours of WWE television every single week.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. And so far, our respondents to the poll are leaning towards sending him over to Raw as well. At this point, 34% of the respondents saying, well, give him a chance to go over to Raw. I think you could possibly rebuild them just due to the fact that you could send them over to Raw and you have your chance to rebuild them. Do they want to? That's another thing. Obviously, you just did your list of reasons why they would not want to. 31%, however, then saying send them back to NXT.
No.
No, that I don't think I'd want to see that.
Keep his stank away from Adam Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. So 21% say release him. 13% say keep him in the SmackDown undercard. That vote's still ongoing, so get your thoughts and opinions in on that.
Hey, maybe you JTG him. Send him home for 2.5 years, and then eventually, okay, he's been collecting a paycheck to sit at home for 2 years. Get rid of him then. Speaking
of which, he tweeted earlier tonight saying that, hey, Crime Time still owed a rematch with the Usos from 4 years ago, so can we get our title shot? So maybe we'll get that sometime soon. They need tag teams after all.
Well, Shelton Benjamin's coming back, so at this point, everybody, the door is wide open, I guess.
Yeah, that's it, right? I mean, let's bury Corbin and push Shelton Benjamin. Yeah.
So let's actually talk about the match proper.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
We had really what was a typical John Cena match where he let the guy go over on him just a little bit, just enough to get his shtick in, but then John Cena goes ahead and reverses all of the guy's stuff. That what is it? That slide out of the ring, go around the ring post, come back and clothesline the guy. He took it twice. Then he's like, nope, I'm going to beat you right at that point when you try it a third time. So listen, we're not John Cena. We haven't spoken to him. He's not our boy or anything of the sort. But you've seen before in the past, if John Cena goes ahead and just doesn't give you anything, beats you clean in the middle of the ring on the first night in, it's generally a thing where he doesn't like you. So you're probably not going to have much of a future.
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, we've talked a lot about this at this point, but yeah, I think the matchup itself, pretty straightforward Cena matchup. Didn't necessarily end up being the best of choices to start off the main part of the pay-per-view. But, Super Cena wins. They
wanted to get Baron Corbin out of the way.
Yeah, I guess so. So Super Cena wins. That was it. That was all.
It would have been on the pre-show if it weren't Cena. If it would have been anybody else.
You know what? If they had put Cena's match against Corbin on the pre-show and that tag match on the opener, it would have been a better overall
flow. Yeah, flow to the card. But it's John Cena. You can't have him on a pre-show.
Whatever. He's going to leave to go to do the Transformers eventually anyways.
He is a Transformer.
Yeah. And then we got the greatest promo apparently of all time, according to Tony.
Oh, the No Mercy promo.
Yes.
That's when it aired, because it aired a few times.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss and what is it? 1,000 Alexa Blisses all doing this weird sorority girl dance with a weird, crazy mask-looking thing, promoting No Mercy. What's wrong with that? Why do you have nightmares from that?
Yeah, that was not the worst.
Why do you have nightmares? Come on, man.
Super creepy.
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Doesn't even register on my creepy radar.
No, exactly. Tony has tissues everywhere. Anyways, the women's title match from SmackDown was up next. Naomi and Natalya, and the only thing I could say about this matchup is they did a pretty good match. One thing that annoys the hell out of me and Naomi is those stupid fake looking kicks.
Like, her fake Bailey kicks?
Yeah, like, I can't stand it. It gets me really, really annoyed every time I see it at this point. And I also feel like she's really become too in the motion.
I feel more bad for the girls taking the kicks, because some of them don't even sell it. They just stand there while she does it around them. And then occasionally go, ow. But that's it. Natalya's a kind of old school wrestler. She's like, if you're not touching me, I'm not going to do nothing.
Yeah, pretty
much.
She's
not Trish Stratus from 2004, where a girl misses her on a bulldog entirely and then just lays down, right? Or was it the opposite? And it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, Natalya will just stand there and be like, make it work.
Yeah, exactly. So they had a really good back and forth matchup. A lot of false finishes
I love that reversal out of the sharpshooter where Naomi essentially just launched Natalya into the turnbuckles. That was so great. Well done.
Absolutely. They definitely gave it their all. They had a very good women's matchup from the SmackDown brand. Natalya gets a rub. She gets the win. She gets the title. It's only her second title in her entire run in the WWE. So, she actually gets
and
Naomi.
6 years ago was the last time.
That's it. And
most girls don't even tough 6 years.
No, exactly. And it's completely clean. We discussed the options here going into the show. Like, do they have Ellsworth come out with Carmella and interfere in the finish of the matchup? They don't do that. Naomi taps out clean to the sharpshooter. So, props, I guess, to the WWE for giving a real over to Natalya and rewarding all the hard work and time that she's put into the company. We get no cash in at all. Were you let down by that?
No, not at all. And what I wanted to mention on that is it's a comeback to the Asuka discussion we were having earlier. Mm-hmm. I just dawned on me remembering they really put over Natalya in this win. They didn't let that just sink in nowhere, without much like discussion about it. No, they really went out of their way to put over the fact that she claims to be the best there is, best there, the best there was, best there is, the best there ever will be. She's going to be a dominant champion. No. I think that does kind of open the door for the Asuka, main roster. Because I don't feel Asuka would be the kind of girl Vince McMahon would have on Monday Night Raw. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I know what you mean. Obviously, we've seen that with Shinsuke on SmackDown. The fact that they don't really want him cutting promos. So, the same thing would happen to Asuka. So, yeah, you have a point there.
Yeah, it's like Christian. Was Christian ever a part of the Raw roster?
Oh, don't ask me that. I don't know.
The second you could put him on SmackDown and keep him there.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
let's move on over to Big Cass versus Big Show. Enzo Amore suspended above the ring in a shark cage. We were wrong. Enzo didn't turn heel, but I'm gonna give them props.
I wish they did, though.
Same here.
Like I'm
gonna give them props, though.
Okay.
The whole oiling himself up to squeeze between the bars, that was brilliant. And what made it even more brilliant is the second he hit the ground, just got kicked right in the face. I'm like, okay. I'm cool with that. I am beyond cool with that.
All right. Well, yeah. So, Enzo stripping and lubing himself up in a shark cage.
The stripping I could have done without, but yeah.
I was like, all right, we're getting a live shot of a male stripper joint at this point. But before he gets into the shark cage and the match starts,
that shot was all for Vince. Just letting
you know. Well, of course, he was jacking off backstage.
Oh man, you're dark tonight. You're all about the self-gratification tonight, aren't you?
Well, we had a theme going. I mean,
might as well play into it, right?
After all, I mean, continuity, right, Tony? I mean, the whole No Mercy thing pretty much set up that. Anyways, so
for many guys.
Yes. So Enzo cutting his promo solo just doesn't work. Crowd was so dead. Shut the hell up.
Especially they were in New York.
Put them back together already. I wish they had actually pulled the trigger on turning him heel. It just would have made much more sense. But he's in, like you said, New York. They were booing the shit out of him. In fact, they were, and for that matter, they were. Some of them were booing, others were just not caring. And he's cutting a promo and it's not working. And I'm just like, why? Well, okay, just shut up. It's not worth it at this point.
His stuff works right up until he gets in the ring. When he comes out and the music starts to play, and then he goes, "My name is Enzo More." Everybody plays along, but the second he steps a foot in the ring and he breaks from the usual script, he's done.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And this matchup, and I'll tell you right now, was worst matchup of the night for me. I just did not care at that point. I was annoyed. And Cass wins via Empire Elbow. The whole thing was flat completely with the crowd. No one was caring. It was so dead. It was not even funny. And so for me, that was the worst matchup of the night. And I agree
with you.
Yeah, and they don't turn. So it's kind of like, all right, what the hell do you do with Enzo next? Because there's all the rumors about his heat that's on him. I mean, he gets out of the cage, funny spot, yes, absolutely, but then he gets knocked down, as you point out. So we pulled the Rowdy Wrestling universe, so to speak. And what would you do with Enzo Amore next? Send him to 205 Live, send him back to NXT, put him back with Cass, or release him? What would you do, Tony?
I'd put him the void that's known as 205 Live, because he's a merch seller and he gets a pop when he comes out, so you might as well at least take advantage of that. Just take advantage of it on a show I don't watch.
Well,
a show that no one watches.
The majority did agree with you. 31% saying send him to 205 Live.
26 people who listen to the show aren't stupid.
Yeah, 26% agreeing with our general thought as well of putting him back with Cass. 23% say release him. 21% say send him back to NXT. The reason I would send him to 205 Live, though, is if you actually want to try to give a focused little push to that brand, where you bring some guys there that actually have a little bit more of an over with the crowd and a little bit more established stardom and a little that's something that's going to get a little bit more attention to the brand. That's why I would put him there. Not to write him off so that Tony doesn't watch the show and doesn't care, and neither does most people.
Name me 5 people that watch 205 Live.
Okay.
5 people personally.
5 people I know personally. Okay, never mind. So
the answer to that would have been I know no one.
I think that's the case, but probably Jim does. Anyways,
shout out to Jim. I'm surprised we haven't called his name out in almost 2 years. Is that the first Jim reference in 2 freaking years?
So now people are like, what the hell are they talking about? So,
the Montreal fans know exactly what we're talking about.
Coming up in a week or two, whenever the hell Tony and I actually get to sit down and do this, we're going to do a little bit of a history of the Rowdy Wrestling podcast and us and all that as part of our birthday bash. We'll talk about Jim maybe a little bit at that point.
Just a tiny bit of Jim.
Just a tiny little sprinkle of Jim. Anyways, so send him to 205 Live, Enzo. We're done with you. I think it would be the best of decisions at this point.
Agreed. So let's move on over to
Burial Part 2.
This is all right. I'm going to reference La Descente de Coude guys because they post a lot of rumors on Facebook, and a lot of them are ones I'm like, where are you getting your information from? I don't see it anywhere. Mm-hmm. But one of the guys posted that Rusev asked for his release.
Yeah,
and
I heard about that one.
This would coincide with that. I mean, what the hell? He comes out, he attacks Randy on his way to the ring, has a little bit of a beatdown. They do the gimmick where they both get in the ring, and the ref's not ringing the bell. He's double-checking with Orton. Orton says yes, and what normally happens here is once the guy says, yes, I'm good to go, and the ref moves, he just gets mauled and pinned. No. He just sidesteps out of the way, RKO, 1, 2, 3. It was a 10-second match. I don't get this.
Okay, I called it on our pre-show. I said Orton's going to go over. I had that feeling going into it, and had nothing.
But that's not just over. This is Orton slingshotting.
Yeah. Well, I expected that. Orton has just come off of losing with freaking Jinder. He needed his over, but not just that. In regards to what you said, some sort of rumor about Rusev asking for his release. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't feel as if that is the case as a result of what I saw in this matchup, and I'll say why. They did give him the full dominance before the match where he beat the hell out of Randy Orton, and of course he got caught with the RKO 10 seconds out of nowhere,
which is known to be a move for that sort of thing. Yeah,
so I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, well, great. They gave Randy Orton the over again. They didn't if they really wanted to it was a burial, but it was a 6 or 7 out of 10 burial. If they wanted to go at a 9 or 10 out of 10 burial, where he's asked for his release, so let's make him look like a complete piece of trash. They wouldn't have done the pre-match beatdown.
Oh, they would have just done the almost Sheamus versus Bryan at WrestleMania sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. He would have been intense to try to go attack a RKO out of nowhere 5 seconds, not even have that whole pre-show bad beat down or anything like that. So I think if that was the case, he probably would have went that route. I'm not surprised in retrospect now to say, well, yeah, Randy Orton went over. I kind of saw that coming. I felt as if they were going to do that just due to the fact that he's come off of losing against Jinder. So they pretty much had no choice to kind of give him a little bit of an up.
That makes sense. So let's move on over to Sasha Banks defeating Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship.
It's real.
It is. Hey, whatever. It's all a show. She'll be on there on Monday. I'm not worried. Yeah. This match, going back and forth, it really felt like these girls, there was something not clicking. And I'm really starting to think it's Sasha Banks. I mean, at this point, I'm really starting to think it's her that's the issue in all of these matches. Because, she had that series of lackluster matches with Charlotte. She's on Raw. She kind of is always a little wonky depending who she's wrestling. Her best matches were always against Bayley. And even those, the more recent ones, have been bad. So I'm really starting to think this is a Sasha Banks thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the matchup itself or some of the things that happened before this matchup, but the crowd was so dead for this match that it was kind of weird.
You expected her to get a good pop.
Yeah, it was really, really weird that the crowd was. You could literally see the crowd just sitting there, not caring, and. Some people point out to me they died during the Big Cass versus Big Show match. And, they might be true, but, and the Orton match was so short that, there was nothing really there for them to do at that point. So they have this match and the crowd is super dead. They like you said, they don't necessarily click in the actual physical execution of the match either. So you have a dead crowd. You have a match that, I guess, is not even as good as what we had seen earlier with Natalya, and of course the night before with Asuka. So these two girls were not able to deliver to that same level either. And Sasha, I think I pointed it out on the pre-show, saying, I think Bayley was supposed to win here tonight. She was supposed to win her title back. And then the whole injury kind of threw everything for a loop, but they went through with the original plan anyways, and gave the title to Sasha. So that's what it was, and so I can't say much more than that. I kind of to me, I was distracted almost by the fact that the crowd was just so dead. It was intriguing at that point to me.
Yep. So I have nothing more to add to this one. I think we should just move on over to.
Well, what did I say? I did want to say something about this time. Now I can't remember it. Now I'm gonna kick myself after, because I know I wanted to say something about this. And
okay.
Yeah.
We haven't.
I finally figured it's not about this matchup, but it happened at this. So if we were going chronologically, someone didn't update the script for the foreign commentator intros. Michael Cole is introing all the guys who are doing foreign intros.
Okay.
The foreign commentary. He gets to the French table and he says Raymond Rougeau, and Raymond Rougeau wasn't there.
Oh, did he say Raymond Rougeau? I didn't catch it.
Raymond Rougeau was there last month.
I know exactly. I was sitting there like, oh, it's not Raymond Rougeau. It's the two guys from France.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's not Raymond Rougeau. Someone screwed up. I thought that was pretty funny. I had to mention that. Like, I don't think everybody caught that. Like, because they don't know really who
anybody from Quebec, anybody from outside of Quebec or under the age of 45 wouldn't have noticed.
Exactly. So I caught that, and I was just like, wait a minute.
So Did Pat LaPrade lose his mind?
I didn't notice, honestly, so I'm gonna have to go to his Twitter and see if that was the case. So
we'll everybody know if Pat lost his mind, we'll do a special episode recapping Pat's aneurysm.
Yes, and then he could review Glow Season 2.
Oh, what are you, bitter you didn't get to review women's wrestling? Is that what's up? You, Sassy Steffi, everybody came at me. I'm like, well, if all you had to do was give me a call, I would have been more than happy to have a panel or kick Pat out the door. I would have been totally fine with that, as much as I love him.
That had nothing to do with my comment. My comment was that I'm sure he's going to go on a rant, and that's the fact that it got renewed for Season 2, since he didn't really like Season 1.
Now he's not going to rant. He's going to say, now do it better.
So I see no tweets from Pat LaPrade tonight. So,
boo.
The last tweet he put out was about Adam Cole. So, yeah.
So then, he's a little behind then. So let's move on over. Finn Balor, or as they really put over, the Demon Finn Balor, defeating Bray Wyatt. They had a typical match. They really had their thing. I mean, I'm going to give big props to Bray Wyatt. They did their best that, at the end of Finn Balor's intro, they zoomed in on Bray Wyatt's face, and hey, all played to the guy. He gave a couple nervous looks. He looked a little rattled, which I'll be honest, I don't know why, but let's suspend our disbelief here. He was weirded out by this, but you predicted it. He goes, the only way this can work is if Finn Balor, jumps up on the top rope, coup de grace, and that is it at the end. He's got to go over clean here.
Yeah, and you had no choice with
really
the fact that he was coming out as the Demon, and so we're also used to the fact that Bray Wyatt loses on pay-per-view, right? So our good buddy Brian DeGuppy, he's like, bye last shred of Bray Wyatt's credibility here after that matchup, and
they even took away his song.
Yeah, I like the intro was great for Finn, because he plays off the mind games even on top of that with the whole world in his hand, and the paint job. Oh my God, the paint job this time was just like 10 times better than any other time they've ever had it, and so a matchup pretty straightforward, as you point out. The Demon wins. You had no choice, and Bray Wyatt just keeps on chugging along with
where does Finn Balor go from here now?
See, the thing is that
main event scene's a little too stacked.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think we pointed it out. If it wasn't on the pre-show, it was one of our recent episodes where it was just like, okay, well, we don't know what to do with you. Oh, well, we don't know what to do with you either. Oh, okay, well, let's just put you together. And that seemingly is often the case for Bray Wyatt, and it has recently become the case for Finn Balor. Not obviously in two different ways, in the sense that Bray is forgotten about and is jobbed out, but Finn is forgotten about, but then just gets a win over whoever he ends up facing. So, but it is a lot of randomness for Finn Balor. He obviously became a victim of that stacked main event picture at the moment and kind of fell to the wayside. So I think it's a little bit more randomness as well. That's going to be in his near future. Survivor Series, he could be involved
Send
in
Baron
some sort
Corbin to Raw and just have him kill him.
Yeah, that'll happen. That no doubt. Yeah, that'll be another random feud that he could take part in for sure.
Move over Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, who's what in the PFK commercial instead?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so then at this point, like as we mentioned, we don't know where they need to go with it, but at least they pulled the trigger in the right direction. Finn Balor going over Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at this point, we're about 2 hours into the show, and I have to mention what for me has been the meme of the weekend, because I don't know who started it, but someone memed up some video footage of Andre the Giant, kind of doing like no, like kind of like saying no, stop type of thing, video footage. And it's like me realizing this show has more than 2 hours or more to go, and you see Andre, and it's just classic Andre face footage. You have to see it if you haven't already seen it. And so it was meme of the weekend because it just nailed it so hard. I'm like, oh man, we're only 2 hours in. We still have 2 hours to go. We're already 4 hours in with the pre-show. This is becoming a long night at this point.
Indeed it was. And then we had Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins teaming up to win the Raw Tag Team Championship from Sheamus and Cesaro. We called it. I mean, Sheamus was on his way out. He's got to go film a movie. It just... You shifted your entire tag team division around just to what I'm assuming really is appease two guys, or appease fans of two guys who had nothing to do in the main event. This is one of those things where we talked about, what do you do with you? What do you do with you? Okay, well, hey, you guys are former buddies. We can tell a storyline about how you're emotional little bitches and you just want to be bros again, but you got your egos in the way and you got hurt in the past. So let's have you become tag team champions. Meanwhile, you have all your other tag teams on the Raw side completely ignored on this pay-per-view.
For a long time, we've talked about the possibility of reuniting the Shield. You get the Shield, as you pointed out and called it on the pre-show here.
Because D for Roman, because he's a dummy.
Yes, and D for Dean Ambrose, who becomes the first Grand Slam champion of the Shield.
Wow, you stole my fucking gimmick. I was going to point that out.
Oh, okay. Well, it was
you son of a bitch. I was sitting on that goose.
It was very popular on Twitter tonight.
It was because, and I was away on Twitter, as you know, family event and all that. But
well, that's why I pointed it out. I'm not sure if you knew it.
I knew it. I saw it right away. He wins, and I'm like, oh, look at that. He U.S. IC World Heavyweight, and now the tag team. I'm like, look at that. Good for that guy. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, who else has done it that quickly? And I was like, maybe CM Punk. I'm not sure.
Well, I'll let you steal the beach ball thing if you want. Go ahead.
Oh, what beach ball thing?
Oh man, okay. You didn't see the beach ball thing.
I am the Marty Jannetty of our team tonight.
Holy shit! Like, all right, this was the best shoot moment ever in professional wrestling.
What did I miss?
Like, okay. At this point, at one point in the match,
I got bored and I started playing with my dog, so that might be it.
The crowd probably got bored and started playing with themselves as they were throwing a beach ball around.
Thank you for precising the beach ball. Go on.
Yes, all right. We are a PG.
We're already an illicit branded podcast on iTunes. We've earned it.
Well, you're the one who opened the door for swearing originally. You told me, yeah, we can swear on this shit. All right. Anyways.
You cracked open a beer and went, all right.
All right. Pour one down and set up some wines. Anyways, so Cesaro gets probably pissed at the fact that the crowd is doing exactly what you're doing, and they decide to start throwing a beach ball around. It is the biggest part of the summer, after all, right, Tony?
That's right.
And so, beach ball getting bounced around and gets down to the floor level, probably causing some distraction amongst the crowd, popping for that ball. So Cesaro jumps off of the apron, goes into the crowd, grabs the beach ball, pops it in the most heelish of moves possible ever.
Because Cesaro rocks.
And jumps back over the rail and gets back up on the apron. Full on heel mode. Rest in peace, beach ball. Rest in peace. That was the best work shoot ever. I just loved it. I mean, I put up the dumbest poll in Rowdy Wrestling history at that point. As what was the biggest loss in recent years, the beach ball or Mitch DePlant, and the beach ball is leading the poll so far.
Really?
At 55%.
Well, that's because we got son of a Mitch.
Yeah, but someone did point out that they were still upset about Francesca that I did not put in the poll. But anyways,
that's because we got Francesca too.
Yeah,
the beach ball. We once we get El Hito del Beach Ball, we'll be fine. Then we can move on.
Yeah, exactly. But that was awesome. I just love that moment. And I can understand if as performers they were very upset that the crowd wasn't getting into it and they were just like playing with the beach ball. But that's
a crowd that's already sat through 5 hours of wrestling.
Exactly. So
this weekend.
That point, this happens on to these type of matchups. So, new tag team champions crowned ultimately: Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins. I like that. We discussed it on the pre-show. I like the fact that they got the tag team titles there together, because if not, then they're in the same position as Finn Balor. Really, at this point, they would be in that same position. Maybe in a slightly better position in the sense that Dean Ambrose and Rollins are a slight bit more over than Balor in terms of money and
established.
Established, exactly. But really, what would you do with them if they were separate at this point? Not much left to do either. So with the stacked main event card, you kind of find these guys to the wayside. So put them together, give them the titles. I have no problem with that. I enjoyed that. The fact that they won. Match was okay. Nothing amazing. And beach ball, we will miss you.
Which then leads into AJ Styles defending the U.S. title versus Kevin Owens, and the entire storyline, especially after this match, was, look at us, we have Shane McMahon involved in one of the big 4 pay-per-views. Look, it's Shane. Guys, it's Shane. Have you seen Shane?
Did you see Shane's suntan?
Oh, God. That is... I'm used to seeing a very tan Shane now that he's all salt and pepper in the hair and has a wider neck than Kurt Angle in his prime. But that was something, especially when he's standing next to, AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, and he's practically glowing. That's how tanned he is.
It was full on Donald Trump orange at this point. So we do
remember that time that Miz had such a bad tan that you saw the pink of his eyelids.
Yeah.
It was almost there.
Yeah, pretty close. And so we do have to give some.
Hey guys, it's Shane. Shane's on the pay-per-view.
Shane McMahon.
This is Shane. Ignore the fact that you have 2 world-class wrestlers in the ring. This is all about Shane.
The guy who fell off of a cage and also fell out of a helicopter and survived. Shane. Shane McMahon.
Shane's here. Guys, it's Shane.
Former WWF referee Shane Stevens. You remember him? He was there tonight.
He wore very low-key referee shirts back in the day, but now he's got his own custom baseball jersey-style referee shirt, so much so that his sons were wearing them.
Yes, there you go. So this matchup, we do got to talk about this matchup.
Can I interrupt you? Did you know who was in the match?
Shane?
Oh, yeah.
Shane McMahon.
I'm sorry, I'm beating that gimmick to death, because that's what they did.
Yes. So AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, another classic matchup from these two.
Yeah.
Storytelling at its best. I think Stone Cold Steve Austin put it best. He's like, what a freaking soap opera. That was like in a positive sense, not in a negative sense. Like these two guys took an entire story and played it out in that match. Job well done, man. I'll let you take a little bit more here on explaining the moments in the matchup here, but for me, it was awesome.
Well, it was just at the very end, because once again, you got to bring it back to Shane. I mean, they had a very good match. They teased it quite often. Shane gonna call it down the middle. He does have that thing with AJ, but Kevin and AJ just know each other so well, so they wrestle around each other without even having to talk. I mean, at one point, I believe it was towards the beginning, maybe close to the middle of the match, they're on the outside. AJ gets Shane leaned up against the apron, and I had never seen this before. AJ just runs at him, jumps up on the apron, and just knees him right in the fucking face. That was that was amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
That was not thought up whatsoever. It's just, I'm sure about it. He's just like, well, he's there, might as well just wing it. And then the end of the match was so well thought out. You know, he hits the springboard, phenomenal forearm. And the commentary, I'm gonna put over the SmackDown commentary team for this. He goes, that could be it right there, but AJ Styles is not leaving anything to chance, and picks up Owens and beats him fucking clean right in the middle with the Styles Clash. You know, after they had already done the false finish where Kevin had hit the pop-up powerbomb really close to the ropes, so that way AJ had his foot up essentially from even before the 1 count, but Shane McMahon waves off his count going, no, I see his foot's there, and having Kevin lose his mind on him, and that's where the tomfoolery happened. But I thought, honestly, these guys put on such a great match, and when you have a special guest referee, especially when it's Shane McMahon, the match turns into all about that. I mean, every time you've had Stone Cold, with the exception of WrestleMania 20, be your special guest referee, it's all about Stone Cold. It's all about who's ever doing that. It's all about Jackie and her gigantic boobies whenever she was a ref for a match. So the fact that these guys were able to give you a story that was about them, as well as push the agenda of, look, it's Shane McMahon, big props to both of these guys. Stone Cold had it right. This was a wonderfully crafted soap opera.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the finish on the commentary was just missing Adam B saying signed, sealed, delivered. Would have been perfect at that point. But just another Canadian screwed by McMahon. I loved that tweet by Phenom Devitt. Just it was great. I just marked out for that, and hopefully this leads to a great extended thing between Kevin and,
it would have been great
and
if
Shane
Kevin,
McMahon.
It would have been great if Kevin had gotten up and just mimed WCW to the camera.
That would have been epic.
Like not a real company that exists today, just him go WCW. That would have been it for me.
205.
And you can imagine exactly, and you can imagine it probably went through Kevin's head. That's how much of a dick he is.
For sure. Oh, it's just epic, great stuff from these two guys tonight. So.
Can we ignore Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke, or do we have to talk about it?
Oh, you have to talk about it. You have no choice. The internet is abuzz.
Oh my god, they did it. They had the Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jinder Mahal match. What, like the smart money was coming in, and Shinsuke was still winning.
Yeah,
the smart money came in, and Shinsuke did not win.
Hold on. No, the smart money came in late.
Very late.
Jinder ended up favorite heading into the show.
Really? How? Because I checked this morning, because I'm starting to follow your lead, and as of this morning, it was still Shinsuke.
That's right. It was. And one thing that I can say that the leaks on the betting were very tight this time around for SummerSlam. We talked about one of the points of the fact that the Raw title match was, they didn't really want to talk about the finish fully until they got there into the arena Sunday. And for the most part, eventually The majority of them did fall into order. There was a couple of them that came in as underdogs. Sasha Banks came in as an underdog, and the Usos came in as major underdogs. But Jinder Mahal ended up being a negative 190 favorite.
So think about it. A match on the pre-show made some people some good money.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
A pre-show match.
But it was around, it was not too long before, I think it was about an hour or so before the pay-per-view started that the officials' odds had switched back. So Jinder was the favorite heading into it. And so it ended up being that way. And, of course, Shinsuke gets the full on intro to the ring. He got the full
no Kevin Dunn influence
thing. There. No, not at all.
Well, he had the violin.
Kevin Dunn probably had a heart attack from earlier in the night when they were trying to figure out how to shoot Finn Balor coming out, and they were just like switching between 4 cameras within 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, that was at one point. That was just a bad flash, like tack, 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 tack. I'm like, what? Ow, ow.
Yeah. So, all right. So Jinder Mahal, Shinsuke, go.
What do you want to talk about? They had a Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Both of these guys kind of did their things. And it wasn't the worst match. It wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been because of Jinder. And really, I mean, he botched his own finishing move at the end. But aside from that, and that could almost be a little bit of Shinsuke's fault because he didn't throw his legs out all the way. But, I mean, aside from that, what can you really say? The match, it was a match. These guys went and did, I assume, what they were told. And the finish was something that the majority of the crowd were against. Now, the people complaining and begging for something different were still in that different route because Jinder's still champion. But then you have all these people going like, no, but Nakamura's here. Let's have him as champion. If Nakamura would have won, where would you go from here? At least with Jinder, you have something already. Shinsuke losing the way he did, especially, it hurts him, but it's not the end of the world. You really, in my mind, at this match, where they're at in the story, where they're at in the thing, like it makes sense to have Jinder continue. And it kind of sounds stupid saying because we're not going to have fantastic matches because of it, but he's the Indian JBL. Let's just hope he starts cutting proper promos.
As far as the matchup was concerned, a bit of a conflict of styles here, and obviously major, but
like I said, Jinder did Jinder,
yeah.
Shinsuke did Shinsuke,
yeah,
and then
it didn't
somewhere
work.
in the middle, wrestling kind of happened.
Kind of, and but there was a lot of hope and thought that Shinsuke might win the title tonight, and even as you point out, a lot of people thought he was the favorite, and he was the favorite leading into the afternoon to possibly win the championship tonight. But that doesn't happen. You get pretty much your typical, as you point out, JBL type of finish where you have interference, cheat to win type of thing where obviously the Singh brothers get involved. That allows Jinder to get the advantage and get
But
the
they
victory.
even got just the very least amount of involved.
Yeah, well, enough to distract, right? They're in the ring.
Yeah. It's a John Cena level of distraction on Baron Corbin.
The ref could have called interference at that point, but obviously since Shinsuke was beating them down,
they never landed a punch. It's still I agree. There's no need to call it at that point.
So the things that did stick out to me as side points, like the commentary. I didn't ask for a Punjab fight companion. So I don't know why we were getting one. Like they keep cutting to the Punjab team. Like I don't want to hear it. Like I don't understand the word they're saying. So why am I dealing with this right now? Like I could use a Snoop Dogg one, fine, but no, I can't deal with that. Also, can you really still call throwing the guy into a steel post if it's encased by LED lights?
Yeah, it's LEDing, not posting.
So that kind of stuck out to me. But the reaction after the match is what obviously sticks out most. The look of shock and surprise on audience member faces as Jinder celebrated his victory tonight was not only felt in the arena tonight, but also in the Twitterverse. I retweeted just a few as my timeline blew up at that point. The ending of the match did not go over, and let's see, just a few that I retweeted. Steve Juwan, well, F SummerSlam, I'm done. Then we got run _4 beer. Yeah, I'll go ahead and cancel my subscription until WrestleMania now. Ed Smith 313, what the effing F, WWE. Well, that was awful. It said guest music, and continued on from there. Tim Duncan, really WWE, effing really, fuck you, like full on. People were pissed. They thought he was winning, and the reaction did not go over well. And so, at that point, you got a big pissed off crowd, and we're 5 hours in, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Though we're at main event time, and it picked up at that point.
Oh, did it ever pick up?
So at least we had some great moment here as we got into the main event.
That's right. Well, we had the main event: Samoa Joe defending versus Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, and Samoa Joe. How much time was spent in the ring?
Yeah, not much.
Really not much. And
2 minutes bursts here and there.
And I'm gonna give props to I'm gonna give mad props to Brock Strowman. Yeah, Brock Lesnar for letting himself just get manhandled by Braun Strowman. One, even before he went through the 2 announce tables, he got speared through the guardrail. And then in total Brock fashion, when he did revive himself, came out swinging part of the guards, the dasher boards. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that was insane.
That was so awesome. He's like, I might not be able to hit somebody, but at least I'll look cool doing this.
For sure. No, I mean, the all-out brawl to start the matchup was the perfect decision here. As, Brock Lesnar, it really doesn't matter what ultimately the finish was. Brock Lesnar made, Braun Strowman to a whole new level tonight. That pre-match brawl was, not only intense, but gave such a rub to Braun Strowman that it was just like unbelievable what we were watching. To think that, and I tweeted out the sentence, Braun Strowman put Brock Lesnar through 2 announce tables. Think about that. It was an actual fact. And then threw a 3rd one on top of him. That is crazy to think that Brock Lesnar, who even, moments before that, got completely tossed into the air and across the ring. That was like, whoa, what is going on? I thought that
Brock
was so
came
well
to do
done.
Business.
Yeah, I thought it was so well done. And now you have the big money match between him and Strowman, because and correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't hit a suplex on Strowman, right?
No, it was all the 2 Samoans named Joe.
So there you go. Now you still have this money match. Strowman laid him out. Now Brock Lesnar has never hit the suplex on him yet. There you go. You got your either...
I think he hoisted him up for 1 F5, but he got out of it.
Well, there you go. So you have your matchup fully set up now for these 2 men to face off in the future, and everybody's going to be clamoring to see it. I thought it was so well done, and then you add in the other things that were happening with also Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe, and it was pretty much nonstop from beginning to end. An action-packed match that had people on the edge of their seats. A lot of false finishes that could have really went either way. Last-second saves. last second pulling the ref out. And of course, there was the ongoing rumor throughout the night where there was a possibility that The Undertaker was going to come out and take out Roman Reigns in this matchup. Now, reports that Undertaker was in Brooklyn, reports photos of him online in a plane on the way there, so on and so forth. Whether they're actually true, false, who knows? But ultimately, The Undertaker does not come out. But there was that rumor, that possibility that it could happen. So the crowd was completely on the edge of their seats throughout this matchup. And because of that, already the excitement level going into tonight's show was so high for this match that they were able to deliver to the expectations and then some. And therefore, you have to give major props to that. And for me, that ended up being the match of the night because it had high expectations. It delivered and surpassed it. And Brock Lesnar, it came to do business, like you said. And even though he ended up retaining his title, and we could shut up all the UFC marks now, he really, helped make sure that this matchup tonight ended up being something even better than we expected.
Yeah, hands down. You turn around and you made a bunch of things. One, there's the proof how they have faith in the I'm going to say blind faith in Roman Reigns because he's the one who took the fall here. Had it been Braun Strowman, then you killed that match that you were talking about earlier about, the fact that he hadn't been suplexed, hadn't been F5'd, and he just manhandled Brock Lesnar. Samoa Joe, that's another thing. He already lost to Brock Lesnar once, but they did it in such a way that he looked really strong. So in my mind, the only logical guy you could have had was Roman Reigns taking the pin here. So where you go from here, you mentioned it, you have the built-in money feud, or at least one money match between Brock and Braun Strowman, which, if we do our math, there's Raw, which is No Mercy, which is a B pay-per-view. Do you think they would waste the money on bringing in Brock for that, or do you wait for Survivor Series at that point?
I would think that Brock does not wrestle at the September pay-per-view. You could determine a number one contender gimmick type thing again. Just do that whole thing again where, much like a UFC champion, he comes in, he defends, then, he's off for a little bit while, others fight, and you determine a number one contender again. So you could have Braun Strowman face, Roman again. Although we wouldn't necessarily want to see that at No Mercy. Yeah, but they have had some good matches. So, whatever they end up doing, I doubt they would burn the big money matchup on No Mercy. So I think no matter what, even if Brock Lesnar's there, you don't do Brock and Braun there because I think that would just be a wrong move for them to do.
Okay, I feel you.
It's a throwaway pay-per-view, right? You wait to the big four. You got to wait to at least Survivor Series to do that matchup, if not Royal Rumble, if not WrestleMania. And so you don't do that there. Please don't. I hope that they don't. And so we'll see what happens. Obviously, Raw tomorrow night. Maybe a superstar shakeup in the near future as well. A lot of things going on. We want to know what everybody thought as well about SummerSlam.
Yeah, so go check out all the polls that Steve has up there. So hop on Steve's poll.
Yes,
also do that. That's at Rowdy Wrestling for the show, at Rockmaniac 00 for him, Tony Mixtabile for me. So we do want to know what you guys are thinking, especially going into 2 more days at the Barclays Center for Raw and SmackDown. We'll be active on the Tweety box there because with those 2 shows, we're essentially knowing where we're going heading into the fall because they're going to set everything up at that point.
Absolutely. So what a great weekend SummerSlam was. You know what? And that's the poll going on right now in terms of what you would give as a grade for SummerSlam. Personally, I give it a B. But overall for the weekend, big thumbs up for WWE this weekend.
Huge.
They definitely delivered and then some. NXT went above and beyond. SummerSlam had overall very good moments, couple not so great moments, but that main event blew everything away. And so really props to WWE for a great weekend.
Yeah, hands down. Now thinking about it, gun to your head once more. What was your highlight of the entire weekend?
Ultimately, it ended up being that main event. I think that whole moment of Brock putting over Braun and will be something that will stick out in my mind no matter what. The close second with Adam Cole, but I think the Brock and Braun thing ended up having such a bigger impact that that's the highlight of the weekend for sure.
And naturally, I think we agree the whole Enzo Amore above the ring was the worst match.
Oh, hands down tonight. That was even though the Alexa Bliss Sasha match didn't go as well,
it was
as
still way
one
better
would hope.
than that.
It's still way better than that. Even though the crowd didn't care, it was still way better than that. And also my personal interest level was nowhere in that matchup of Big Show and Big Cass. No, for me that was definitely the worst matchup of the night.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Steve. Thank you to everybody who downloaded this week's episode. Thank you to everybody who's with us all week with first the media call for GFW, then Triple H's conference call, then our preview for the weekend, and now this. So thank you to everybody listening. We're barreling into our second year anniversary. That's all going down August the 25th. So mark that on your calendars. 2 years we've been doing that. What are we like? Terrible toddler?
Yeah, 2 years, and I think it's my 14-year anniversary, something along those lines.
Of talking into a microphone about professional wrestling?
Yeah.
It's been a while. You're getting old.
Oh, no doubt.
Watch out, I might send you to the glue factory.
Is Shane McMahon there?
Fuck. He should be there soon. All right, thank you to everybody. Have a great week. We'll be back. Thanks for downloading today's episode. If you're new around here and like what you've heard, hit that like button and slap the subscribe one too. Leave me a comment and tell me what you thought, and I'll see all of you next time.